Ladies and gentlemen, it's Rotag, joined by Willy, and we are here bringing you a brand new episode of our show. A little bit different. Most of you are used to seeing us in Brawl action, where we have just finished up 6 Brawls there, and we hope to bring you a few more to round out season number 1 at some point. But we wanted to take a little Brawl break and just talk some other things that both Rotag and Willy are interested in. Willy, what's going on today?
That's right. You are listening to Rotag and Willy After Dark. We are talking about some college football. We're just talking about life and just letting it roll and seeing where the conversation takes us. So tune into that YouTube dial, subscribe to that junk, and we'll take you on a journey of chill.
That's the best part about recording these is we're not scripted, and so you never know what's going to come out of one of our mouths and how it's just going to put a different taste in the other person's.
I'm not used to recording at night, bro. This is different to me. This is I turn on the nighttime radio voice because it's nighttime. It's a different time.
See, and I'm just burnt out and exhausted. I had a long day, lots of fun. And by fun, I mean not fun at work and then after work. And it was just storming here. And I had to drop off the lawnmower to get new blades on it. And so like that, it's just, it's always something, So
I've got to mow the lawn too, because I have definitely not been doing that. As a parent, there hasn't been time. There's a big pile of laundry, and it's the clean laundry because there's no time to put it away. You know how it is.
Yeah. Speaking of lawns, I saw a lot of nice lawns recently on Saturday, and some even earlier and some a little later on Saturday. And those were on 100-yard field lawns.
They were, and many of them were AstroTurf, or now field turf. It's a fancy turf that has a ground-up tire as the mud. Yeah, that's like
you see that kicking up on the field and stuff like that. It's always interesting to see. For sure.
I coached for years, and it used to be all grass, and now it's all turf fields. And my players were shocked on the one game of the season that they had to go play on grass. And it's a Saturday morning, and these players are saying, like, what is this stuff? Like, it's like there's bugs on this. Just like, yeah, there's like bees and like what? There's like ants. Just like, yeah, this is grass.
Man, football players getting a little prissy there,
Yeah, they're used like that. This feels different. I'm not as fast. Just like, yeah, this is grass. This is if you are lucky enough to get rid of that prissy attitude, then maybe you can get a college scholarship and you will play on these fields. There's a few of them still out there.
I was going to say,
especially the smaller schools that are going to recruit your ass.
I'm pretty sure one of them that is still natural is all alma mater, UF.
That's right. Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. They're not going field turf.
At least not now. They've spent enough money on practice facilities and new baseball stadiums and stuff like that. They got to kind of watch the spending there a little bit, even though I'm sure they make far more money than you and I, even though they seem to hunt me down and send me letters every month saying, hey.
They call me all the time. But it's like I see that 352 area code, and I know it's going to be some poor freshman in a call center asking me for money. And I'll have to tell them, like, once I got my student loans repaid from your asses, then maybe I'll send you a check.
That's right. They just nickel and dime. Like, there are people making far more than I am at this point that can help out. And so, if I'm going to help out, I might as well have tickets to the game. So, speaking of that, let's go over some of the college football games we saw. And why not start with the Gator Game? I mean, that's the game that I watch the most. I don't have cable TV, so I have to watch them through a couple different apps, or go to a local restaurant and watch them, or go to a friend's place or my dad's place to catch some of the games. And so I did catch a bunch of the different action, but that was the game that I watched from start to finish. And I tell you what, it's an interesting looking season for the Gators. What are your thoughts?
Interesting is one way to put it. I hear Mullen's supposed to be a quarterback whisperer. He must have been whispering some weird stuff in his starting in QB1's ear, because he looked to me just like very rookie-ish. I mean, he looked good at points, but again, plenty of quarterbacks making their first starts ever. Plenty of quarterbacks who've never seen the field before make the same like type of thing. You would think that somebody who's been in the program as long as he has would be a little bit sharper. The offense was smoother. FAU is like they're not going to be a BCS team this year. They're not going to threaten the playoffs. And I was hoping to have them take firmer control of that game early. Defense, I'm happy with. I mean, they're playing pretty vanilla, but they're not going to show anything that they don't have to, especially if Bama coming to town pretty soon. So, I'm hoping that that's the reason why we look so plain and vanilla, because they're saving stuff for Bama, and I'm expecting a similar look against USF in Tampa, because don't show anything until you have to.
All right, now you say that. Does Bama hold stuff back and not show people?
Bama doesn't have to hold stuff back because they got a whole stable full of 5-star athletes that you could tell them it's like run 33 ISO, and it's just like, okay, 70-yard run.
And that's the thing. I was talking about this because you brought it up, and it's funny, the similar discussions that I had, because I was having that discussion during my game with my dad as we were watching, and I was talking about it. I said, every time I watch Alabama, it doesn't look like they are holding back on anything. They just do what they do. Whereas other programs, we've been in the past, we're holding back till a big game. And I'm like, does that sometimes hurt them and I'm talking about the teams that don't, or that do hold back, that they're not as then ready to execute that stuff that they've been holding back, apparently. So, I mean, I don't know. I've not, coached at those levels, but that's just something that I've, was wondering. Emory Jones, as you brought up, just was definitely not the guy that you thought could take them to a championship this year, or at least to be contending for the playoffs and stuff like that. He did not look like that. I don't think he looked as bad as the stats kind of and everything show, because the first 2 drives, marched down, 2 touchdowns, looking fine. Then he gets pulled for AR-15, and we'll get to talk about him because very exciting, just like everybody else seems to be excited about him, who has a good drive himself down there, but then his helmet gets taken off. So then Emory's thrust back in there, and that's when things, start to go bad for him. They don't end up converting on the 4th down. Then they go down again, interception or whatever. And so they were down in that goal line 2 more times. And so that really should have been another 14 points, making it, a much bigger spread in the game. I mean, the game really wasn't that close,
it was never, they're never threatened. Like the defense was playing too well for that, and the offense was controlling the ball for the most part.
Yeah. 400 yards rushing, number 1 in the entire NCAA for the week and that stuff. So I mean, that's a bright spot, because last year we were not very good at rushing the ball, and we were
very good at defense.
Passing. We were awful at defense, and I'm not sure that we're so much better this year. I mean, Grantham has a lot.
Game, it's FAU.
What's that?
It's 1 game and it's FAU. I mean, it's hard to really make any generalizations on how the season's going to go. But again, I was hoping for a lot cleaner performance, especially a more in control performance from some of the offensive players. I was hoping to really see something like, even if not even spectacular, just like smooth, just go out there and complete 10 of 13 passes, run the ball like we did, and don't turn it over. Maybe throw a touchdown pass, maybe run for 1. Just don't look sloppy. I don't like seeing sloppy mistakes against a team that could finish about 4-6 this year against a much inferior competition.
Yeah, and I don't think that they're bad. I think they've got some good athletes down there, but I think they're on the smaller side too. Like, I mean, we've got a deeper pool and we've got bigger guys. And so I didn't see us dominating on the line of scrimmage as much as I felt like we should have. In the trenches, that's still been a concern for me year after year, that we're not that dominating force down there. But yeah, I mean, Emory Jones is the same guy that I've seen all these years. And like you said, he's been with the program enough time that he should be electric. And if he's not, he might not have what it takes to get there. Even though, like I said, I think that he was better than what some people are going to look at for the final stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you texted me earlier and said, like, could you see a Chris Lee, Tim Tebow dynamic playing out here if the younger with AR-15 playing Tebow role with the same Tebow number? But honestly, I think Chris Leak is better than Emory Jones. Like Chris Leak, I felt was like he couldn't do the things Tebow did, but I like Chris Leak.
Chris Leak, very highly touted prospect when he came in. I think he was number one actually in his class and stuff like that when he came in. Um, Never was anything spectacular to me. It
But
was
he was in control.
he
Like
he was he was very much, I'm not going to lose this game for you. I'm just going to manage. We're going to, go here and there. It was never anything exciting. So I think Emory Jones is a different player than Chris Leak in that scenario. Chris Leak, again, game manager, get it done. Emory Jones, boom or bust more. And that can
I
become
don't
a,
like that. It's like
what's that?
I don't like the boomer bust. I like the game manager.
And I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying, but that's more what I see him as because the guy can rocket a ball. I mean, on the Hail Mary throw, throwing it with
Yeah.
ease and stuff like that. So he's got a big arm and he can run and got moves a lot to me more like Michael Vick, in the sense that, I'm not, other than he's fast, he's got the strong arm, but can he be accurate enough and make the plays consistently enough not to cost you the game as much as he can win you the game? And I don't think that that's the case. And I'm sure over the course of the season, it will not be that Chris Leak, Tim Tebow thing. It will eventually, AR-15 will take over. Um,
Could
I've
happen unless I mean Emory Jones could put it all together this week. Who knows? I mean, that's like it could very well happen. Could be shaking off some rust. Didn't really play a whole lot last year, so who knows?
Yeah, but I mean that's in practice the reps. I mean he's throwing the ball down low. I mean it's making hard catches for the guys and stuff like that. Not reading things. I mean it's
Oh yeah,
different.
one of the ones I saw once right behind the guy and wound up being intercepted. So
To me, I wouldn't mind seeing the two guys kind of reverse their roles and put AR-15. He's the main guy, and then put Emory Jones more as the come in
hell, I
wildcat.
don't care what they do. I just like whether they go one way or the other. I want to see them get their junk in order in this USF game, and I want them to see it entering the SEC schedule with some sort of plan. Either go one way or the other, and don't be playing this almost Spurrier-esque sort of QB shuffle with with your guys.
Yeah,
And
Brock
I,
Berlin and somebody I can't remember who at the moment. That was the one that they did that.
oh, was it Jesse Palmer? Like was he one of the like the Bachelor? That guy.
I don't think he was one. I think he was on his own. I think he had full season. It was when there was kind of no real stud there, and he kind of played both of them back and forth. So I could be wrong about it. I thought it was Brock Berlin at one point. Nonetheless, overall, I'm glad to see our running game looking good. Our defense looked a little bit better. I'm still not sold on them. We'll see how they play. And personally, I'd rather see AR-15 at quarterback, even though I don't think Emory played bad. I just don't think that he's going to be consistent enough to beat a good team. I would rather see him be used on the outside as receiver, come in and do the wildcat formation, take some handoffs, because he could still throw it, and there's still that threat on those plays, kind of a gimmicky play, but he's got also the speed of moves, and you can use him. I also think that he's not as stout as AR-15, so durability in the SEC getting hit all the time for Emory is just not
Yeah,
going to be a good thing. AR-15 built a little bit more to handle that.
yeah, that's why I would prefer just pick a guy, go with him, and if he gets hurt in this physical conference, then the other guy's there, and hopefully we'll make it work, and hopefully the defense will keep putting it on people. They look good.
All right. Well, I mean, I talked about in the trenches being kind of the thing that I wasn't impressed with. A game that there was a lot of, in the trenches back and forth and not much offense. Georgia Clemson, the biggest game of the week, the two top, five teams going at it. Um, did you watch much of that game? What did your thoughts on it? That kind of stuff.
I was flipping to it, man. That's like everybody like from what I'm hearing on the radio from folks is that they were unimpressed with the offenses. I don't think I don't think those offenses suck that much. I think the defenses are just that good. So like it's like Kirby Smart, those guys can play. They're I mean, that got me worried. I mean, I was thinking this is the year that we might be able to really sort of reclaim the East in a like decisively, not just I want to see a decisive, maybe one loss run to Atlanta from the Gators, but that defense from Georgia is so good. And I'm looking at our guys. I don't know. Like they can make Clemson look that bad. I mean, that guy put up Clemson's QB this year put up 400 yards against of total offense against Notre Dame. It was no slouch last year when he came in for an injured Trevor Lawrence. I mean, that guy is good, and he looked like a JV quarterback against that Georgia defense. So I'm wavering a little bit. I was thinking that maybe this was the year that we would really seize, not just make it to Atlanta, but like do so in a way that we're in the playoff picture a little bit more. I think Georgia's going to be there. I think it's going to be Georgia, Alabama, boring old same two awesome teams in the SEC because I don't see us getting by them. And I hate it because I don't like those guys, and it's annoying to me.
Well, we were there last year. We did get there.
I know.
And so we've made it.
We had a few losses on the SEC schedule and getting there. I mean, it's like.
Yeah, well, and I mean, some of those should not have happened, for sure. And that's going to have to be Mullen to see if he can overcome that. I mean, Alabama's, that's tough.
Not throwing any shoes this year.
Yeah, that's important to keep them on the feet.
Go Tigers! I'm gonna go lose to UCLA and eat a box of cigars and some gravel, and then yell at them with their sissy blue shirts. Did you see that? He yelled at a fan. It's talking about a sissy blue shirt, and then they went out and lost to them. Oh man!
Listen, man, college athletes,
And I want them come up and beat us.
They're yeah. Well, hey, they're all getting their paid now, so good for them.
Go Tigers!
Yeah, I mean the Georgia, Clemson game, it was just kind of boring, and I mean,
hey, I'm a defensive guy. I respect when you know the checks, when you know what they're going to do, when your guys know how to adjust to it, and they have no answer for you. That's going to be boring. You're not going to be able to find your way through it.
And that's the thing is different mindsets, watching different games. One, I'm watching for entertainment purposes at that point, and it's just not entertaining for me. Number two, and I think for a majority because most people like high scoring games. That's the feeling. But where the defense is really that good, or the offense is just that bad. Now you're saying defenses were really good and the offenses aren't that bad, but I saw like 0 shots downfield or anything.
Can't get a shot downfield if you can't protect your quarterback for the 5 to 7 seconds you need to make that throw.
And that's the other point is poor line play. I mean, and that's what people are talking about with the Clemson and stuff like that.
D-line play. That's again, I'm a D-line guy, so
sure. I mean, and that's true. But a lot of other analysis, I've been hearing more poor offensive line versus really great defensive guy. Although Georgia's got a really good defensive lineman there that was wreaking all sorts of havoc. I don't know his name offhand, but he was doing really good. And we'll see. I think DJ, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his last name because I heard somebody else pronounce it. I'm like,
oh, I'm DJ. Yeah,
I'm like, yep.
That's
I'm
why
not
I said that Clemson quarterback that lit up Notre Dame last year.
Yeah, he looked really good, but he looked really bad in this. Like, I mean,
like that's like when you have the same offense or at least the same system going back, those guys can prepare for it. It's not like they were. Not like they had no first game of the season. Normally, as a defense, like you have an idea of what you might see. These guys seemed like they knew exactly what they were going to see, and that's why, like I was talking about, the checks, the adjustments, like those the defensive captains, they were making the right checks. They were making the right calls. They knew what was coming, and the opposing offenses just didn't have an answer.
See, and to me, it looked more like you have two teams that were trying to feel each other out, and neither one wanted to commit the big mistake. I mean, Clemson and DJ ultimately did with the pick six. But I mean, that wasn't on a risky throw. It was on, more trying to be safe in there. And so that's one of the things is it looked like they were just, neither one wanted to do anything big to make that mistake. And I don't know if that's because, at least from the Clemson side, if that's because Trevor Lawrence is not there and you were like, oh, with Lawrence, we were confident, and ETN and stuff like that. And they had some other players that they were, hey, we know we can score and we know we can do this. Whereas they're like, I don't know. We don't want to blow open this game and lose it right away. I thought like they were more playing not to lose rather than to win with both teams. But again, different perspectives from it. We'll have to see how they both go from here and see, are the defenses still as dominated? Do the offenses come alive for those teams? Because right now, again, one game in.
The offenses will come alive against the defenses not as strong. I mean, both of those offenses, I think, are going to put up some points. It's just a matter of they're not playing a really, really good defense. And Clemson impressed me in that regard because they weren't exactly a defensive juggernaut last year.
And that's what the real point is what you just said. Is Clemson a good defense? Because if they're not, Georgia's offense is in trouble.
Yeah, you got it. Definitely. I think that they are a better defense this year than they were last year.
Okay.
And I do think that that's the defenses that were the reason for that low score, and a low score that I appreciate because it's more complicated than it seems. And those are two defenses that knew what they wanted to do. They knew how to disrupt that offense. They had a great defensive game plan and they executed it. It's more complicated than it looks. I mean, you got to disguise coverages. You got to have
no doubt.
Really good Jimmies and Joes as well, and they definitely have that.
They are both defenses were better than the Gators defense, and we were facing a much inferior competition versus as bad as I think Georgia and Clemson offense can be, they're still better than the FAU offense, in my opinion. And so that should show you where those defenses probably are at, and how much more I think, the Gators, and not to just pinpoint that, but that's where I think they need to improve. What game or part of the weekend did you want to talk about next? Because I brought up, obviously the Gator one because our connection there, and that's home for us. But then we, the big game. What other games were interesting to you, or things that you noted?
Well, I'm not exactly too concerned about, but don't care too deeply about. But Nebraska's going to be god awful. Illinois went and lost to a garbage team, and they beat Nebraska and looked better against Nebraska. How bad is Nebraska if they're losing to an Illinois team that might be one of the worst in the Big Ten? So, Scott, our boy Frost was cheating last year to finish 3-5. Now he's losing to Illinois. It's a rough. He's in a rough spot.
I love it for one reason. When Frost was coming off of UCF and they were the hot thing, and he was trying to claim national championship and all that other stuff, he was asked, because he had been linked to the opening at UF. I'm not talking to UF. I've never talked to UF, and blah blah. It's Nebraska.
I wish he talked to UF now.
And I'm thinking, okay, buddy. And I thought he was going to be someone decent. He took that home. He went to the place where he was from, and so I, can't blame him there. But it's not good, and I think he doesn't understand that Nebraska now is not Nebraska of the 70s, 80s, early 90s.
And they could beat up on a Big 12 schedule. It's a lot weaker of a conference than the Big 10. So
for sure now, they were attracting it, and it was a different kind of game with the running game, and more option and triple option and all that kind of stuff going on. Whereas at UCF, he was getting still some good players that maybe weren't making it to the elite big schools, but still wanted to be starters.
And fast. He had speed. It's
wanted to come to Florida. Florida's a very nice, attractive spot that you can get people to come to Orlando. We got airports, we got theme parks, we got beaches nearby. It's a lot more of an attractive place for a college kid than Nebraska. So if you're not bleeding Nebraska colors, it's a little bit tougher to get them to go there, especially when they've not had a history the last decade plus of being a champion and in it all the time.
You look at UCF's roster. I mean, it's not exactly like they're filled with Michigan or Pennsylvania or Ohio kids. There's all the overflow from Florida because there's so much talent here. The Nebraska of old used to attract all the JUCO players, all the players who couldn't qualify initially and went to a JUCO school. And they're really great players. No one else looked at them once they went JUCO. So suddenly Nebraska, you look at their line and from the 90s, those guys were Look at their defense from nice. Those linebackers were studs. Like they had talent, NFL talent that just couldn't qualify academically for whatever reason out of high school. They went to JUCO school and they transferred into like Nebraska. Like Tom Osborne built his program on JUCO transfers. And nowadays, like it's a different recruiting environment. Like people now will find a way to qualify those kids, like find a way to qualify those kids, and there's more programs to go to. So a kid out of high school has more choices than before. We're just like pretty much everybody says no, I can't qualify academically. I gotta go to Fort Union Military Academy or some other JUCO, and now I got to then transfer to a school that will take me. And that's how Kansas State and Nebraska really had a lot of those kids in the 90s and early 2000s. The recruiting atmosphere is completely different now, and you can't recruit a kid out of high school who's looking at Michigan or Florida or Alabama and said like come to Nebraska.
Yeah,
and come to our weak ass program that's like you've never heard of, like as you weren't around in the glory days when Tommy Frazier's running that option. You see Nebraska and you see a program that hasn't had a major bowl victory in nearly a decade or even over a decade.
Yeah, no, it's rough there and stuff like that. And I mean, I don't wish anybody necessarily bad, but I don't, that's Scott Frost. Yeah, I think you made a decision with the heart instead of the head. And you know what? We've all probably been burned by that sometimes.
We have. I mean, like that's the right decision from Nebraska. I think is not to hire a Nebraska guy. It's to hire somebody who knows how to grind and find that talent, like Kelly, who came from like he worked his way up the line from Grand Valley State and Cincinnati, now Notre Dame. Jim Tressel at Ohio State was a Youngstown State guy. Guys who win. They find the talent. So like I think that they should be scouring the FCS ranks, hiring some stud from FCS that no one is really talking about, and just like let a winner win. Because like those Division II, Division III guys, if they like, you give them a chance at a program like Nebraska, and they'll go out and find those kids.
Well, you need to have the right players for your system too, and for Frost's system that probably plays a little bit more fast, like he had at UCF.
You need a pipeline to Florida, and good luck trying to convince a kid from Polk County to come to Lincoln.
I was going to say, and so it's a little bit harder to transfer over, and that's why college football has changed in what kind of system it's running and what kind of guys you're trying to get. It's becoming more speed, more athletic, and that's a little bit harder to pull from certain areas where that's not maybe their forte. So now moving from one Frost to moving to a different Kelly over at UCLA, because they both got hired. They were both considered for the Florida job, right? And so
Chip Kelly.
And so both of them, went different ways, and we ended up getting Mullen to coming back from our former offensive coordinator. And so far I've been happy with Mullen. But Kelly was on the hot seat too this year coming in. Not getting it done. And now all of a sudden UCLA is the belle of the ball, as if they are the greatest thing ever in their little light blue uniforms and everything like that. I'm not so impressed with UCLA.
I'm with you. That like beating LSU at home looks amazing, especially for a beleaguered conference like the Pac-12 that used to suck. So like they're like used to being shut out. They're used to when they get a team in the playoffs, they get spanked, and here they are beating on the fabled SEC teams, putting Ed Orgeron in his place. It's like so. It looked like it has all the elements of a feel-good story. Like maybe the Pac-12 is finally back. I think Oregon was going to put them in their place, and I think that I see UCLA will have at least. I'm calling it right now. They're having at least 3, probably 4 losses this year.
And I was looking at their schedule, and they have, I believe, Utah, which could be a good loss. They have Oregon and USC.
And then if they make the Pac-12 championship game, they'll probably lose to Oregon again, right? Aren't they in the South? I think they're in the South of USC, right?
I don't know enough about it. I haven't looked at the realignments, and how things have chucking out there, mostly because they've been irrelevant over there for a while now. But I mean, that's 3 losses there, more than likely. That they might end up winning one of those or something like that, but hopefully they don't drop another game. But the LSU win, I'm looking at it and go, LSU just got hit with hurricane, and they got bigger things on their mind. They're getting put into other areas to practice. Then there you go, all the way from pretty much on that mid to east coast, all the way to the west coast. That's a time shift difference, and that that jet lag and everything, it does play a part in it. So they're going in a completely different direction there with so much else on their mind, and they're coming in. And last year LSU was not that good, and they beat the Gators in our home. And I will say that we should not have lost that game. That was a terrible loss, and that kind of derailed the season I think that we had going for us.
Yeah.
But they were 5-5 last year. That's not the.
It's like, congrats, man! You just beat a Kentucky. You just
they're in a mid-range team right now, and I know everybody's like, "Oh, 2 years ago they won the national championship." That's great, but they've lost a lot of talent since then. And I think that team was an anomaly a little bit. I mean, you had a good offensive coordinator that came in, and he jumped pro. And
a ridiculous quarterback.
He just fell into the right system with a right talent of receivers that were ready to bloom and go, and they went all out. Kind of like Trask last year for the Gators. Trask, nothing that special beforehand. Obviously, high school couldn't even start, and then waited his time forever at UF. But he put together a really good season, similar to what Burrow did out of kind of nowhere. It's not like he had a huge track record behind him, but lots of talent around him, and he made it work. And you had a good offensive coordinator at the time. The guy that ended up going to Carolina, I think he's the offensive coordinator for the Panthers. And so I just think that LSU is not really that strong. There's still some talent there, but they're not on all cylinders.
I'm not ready to crown Chip Kelly Coach of the Year and punch his playoff ticket yet.
Yeah, and and beating a Hawaii team or something like that. So there's still way more out on the jury for me as that's concerned. Now, can he do it? Sure. He's had talented teams over at Oregon before. He tried to do the NFL stuff. So he could pull it together. But I'm just not ready to say that that's there yet. I've not seen enough evidence to convince me of that.
I'm with you, buddy. And looking at my watch, Rotag and Willy After Dark is getting a little too late for Willy over here. So I think we could start the wind down process, because it's just getting about my bedtime. So any last thoughts, man?
Past mine, I almost passed out a little bit beforehand, and that stinks because I'm very excited. I wanted to talk about how the rankings are coming out and talking about that.
So I know.
And all that other stuff. There's so much more.
A good almost an hour, man. It's gonna be a long episode for people in the Rotag and Willy show to sort through this.
That's right. Well, that's what we have. Trying to do more, just one episode a week, just because of our business schedule. Before we, wind it fully down, this weekend, looking more forward to the Oregon-Ohio State game or Iowa-Iowa State?
Oregon-Ohio State. I mean, it's like I was surprised that they actually made a jump in the rankings. Because Minnesota they're a good team. They're a big team. And they dominated Ohio State up front in terms of that offensive line. Playing 7 offensive linemen at times. I was watching that game, and I felt really bad for Minnesota's running back who popped his Achilles. He was like, that was a good back, and he had Ohio State on the ropes. I'm looking forward to it because I'm not ready. I don't think Ohio State's there this year. I don't think they have what they had in previous years, and I think that I'm not exactly overly impressed with Oregon there, but I think the Oregon might surprise Ohio State. But then once that happens, and everybody's going to say, "Oh my God, the Pac-12 is truly back. Look at UCLA beating LSU. Look at Oregon. Oregon will at least hang with Ohio State." I'm calling it right now. If Ohio State will be favored, Oregon's going to beat the spread.
Now, is it at Ohio State?
I might outright to win.
Is it at Ohio State?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah,
I think it's in the shoot.
And I think that'll help out. I don't know. I thought Ohio State, slow start, but then they got things put together.
They got better receivers than Minnesota has DBs, and they figured it out, and they start airing it out on them. But I don't think Ohio State. I think that Oregon might be better than Minnesota. So Oregon's athletes will be better than Minnesota. You're not going to be able to toss it up and they got some really good receivers, but I don't think they'll be able to bully Oregon's DBs the way they bullied Minnesota's once they figured out that weakness on them.
Well, and Oregon's top player, the guy that Mel Kiper's got number one and stuff like that, I believe he's still probably going to be out. I haven't seen any updates one way or another, and maybe other people have. But so I think that might alleviate a little bit of the pressure that he could have put on for the quarterback. I still got Ohio State winning that one. I'm more excited for the Iowa State game. Obviously I know you got some ties to Ohio State and stuff like that. I've got ties to Iowa being born there, and so Hawkeyes, they looked really good in their game, dominant in all fashions. Iowa State didn't look that impressive to me. They were
No,
bland,
I think Iowa crushes Iowa State.
and
I think that one's a big win.
I think this will be a true test for both of them. Either one, it'll show that one is really strong, or the other one was maybe overrated. And so, whether Iowa State was holding back, as we've talked about before with other teams, or not, we'll see. I mean, they got a good coach there that has been rumored to jump to Campbell to other places and stuff like that. So I just see Iowa being consistent. I mean, they're a very strong, consistent team, normally year in, year out. I don't know if they've got enough to challenge an Ohio State, or Penn State
Right.
in the Big Ten, but they could. And so I'm looking forward to seeing if either one of those teams are for real, because I think that's a good litmus test for them.
Neither Penn State nor Wisconsin looked especially strong. So I mean, that's like looking at like I think Iowa and Wisconsin are both in the West in the Big Ten. So I think Iowa has a good chance to make it to the Big Ten championship game.
Have you taken a look at the coaches poll rankings as we close this out yet?
I glanced at them.
Um, and so with
Iowa and Penn State are both ascendant. I think Penn State's going to go back. I think Penn State's going to have a few losses this year. They got lucky against Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, Alabama won. It's hard to argue against them. Georgia with their win 2, Ohio State 3, Oklahoma 4, Texas A&M 5. Then we get to one loss Clemson at 6. Do you think Clemson is still better than a Notre Dame, Cincinnati, Florida, Iowa State, Oregon, Iowa group?
Yes.
Okay. See, and I just didn't see anything in them that impressed me. I think they're going off of last year's names and stuff like that. We'll have to see throughout the year. Um, but I mean, they didn't show me anything impressive with that loss that they put up a hard points. I mean, Florida State, our rival, they put up more of a fight against Notre Dame there. Does that speak more of Florida State or Notre Dame, do you think?
Florida State is going to be a better team this year than they have been. Like, they're not going to suck as hard.
Yeah.
Notre Dame is not going to be as good. That was about what I expected to see.
And now, is this Mike Norvell's first season in Florida State, or what's that?
I believe so. I think didn't he they go through so many coaches. I think he might have taken over mid season. I don't know. I think it's the first full year.
Yeah, I think so. And so I mean, he's a good coach. Had a lot going on for him at his previous stop. So that's something that'll be good for them for sure. And I think they will be a much stronger team because of that. I was, I don't know. I mean, I'm always biased. I like Florida. I think that the coaches got it right with 9. We're sitting at 13 in the AP poll, which I find to be kind of insulting, that we're that low and that the other teams are ahead of us when I don't think that anybody else had a huge significant win. I did find it interesting that they jumped UCLA from unranked all the way up to 16th based upon those 2 games, and then they marked LSU out of the out of the top 25. And I'm going, well, then is UCLA's win really that good? If they won at home against a team that has been displaced with hurricane stuff going on in their area, who was 5-5 last year, I think we're over crediting that win, and we already talked about that. So I think they got a little overrated. But it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out as things go on. Final thoughts.
It's been a good chat, man. I like the after dark. This is it's a lot easier to do this than it is to whip out playing cards and try and get the camera right on that. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's a lot, and the ambition that we had with that was a lot to take on, and that's why kind of a little hiatus for the channel here. But this is something a little bit easier. Share some more of our passions with you guys here. As always, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, share, comment, hit us up on Twitter at Rotag and Willy. Willy is very active on the Twitter still, and so let us know what you guys think. Obviously, it's important. You guys can have different opinions, and that's okay. I went on to somebody's YouTube the other day, and his top 25 that he put together, was completely terrible. And so, I even said that to him, like, this is awful, and stuff like that. I'm like, but, it's comment to comment, and that's the great part about sports and anything else. We can have different opinions and talk about it and still enjoy one each other's, company and conversation. So I'm
You
Rotag.
got it, man.
He's Willie. He's not Reveal, but even though that's saying that, we appreciate that he didn't try to reveal too much to us and keep those buttons on his shirt going. And we are going to end this before this gets really weird. See you guys later. Peace out.